lived a simple, steady life in Maple Springs, a quiet town where everyone knew everyone, and the rhythm of each day rarely changed. She ran her mother's bakery with discipline and warmth, and most days she felt content. But all that steady calm was shaken the morning Daniel Hayes returned without warning. His presence stirred something she wasn't prepared to face again. It happened at the farmer's market, a place she visited every Saturday to buy fresh ingredients for the bakery. She stood at the berry booth, picking cartons of strawberries, when she heard a familiar voice behind her, deep, warm, and too close to the memories she had tried to avoid. She froze. Her heart reacted faster than her mind, beating hard before she even turned around. And when she did, everything inside her paused. Daniel stood there, looking older but softer somehow. His brown hair was a bit longer, his jawline more defined, and his eyes, those familiar, steady hazel eyes, held something she couldn't name. It wasn't the boy who had left town 3 years earlier. This was a man who had been changed by time, experiences, and choices she hadn't been part of. "Emily," he said gently, as if afraid she might walk away. She tried to keep her expression neutral, though her pulse refused to settle. "Daniel, you're back?" "Just for a little while," he said, offering a small smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "I needed to see home again." Home. The word hit her deeper than she expected. For a long time he had been part of what home meant to her, but she never admitted that to anyone. Not even to herself. She nodded politely. "Well, Maple Springs hasn't changed much." He gave a soft laugh. "I noticed. Except maybe you." He paused, then added quietly, "You seem different." His comment caught her off guard. She wasn't sure how to respond to someone who had once understood her so well, yet now felt like a stranger she still cared about. She kept her voice steady. "Just busy with the bakery." But Daniel kept looking at her, as if searching for the pieces of the girl he once knew. "Emily," he started, speaking slowly, "there's something I wanted to tell you. Something I should have said before I left." Her chest tightened. She wasn't expecting this. Not today. Not in the middle of a crowded market. Not after years of silence. She took a step back, unsure whether she was ready to hear whatever truth had been hidden all this time. "What is it?" she asked, though the question came out softer than she intended. Daniel opened his mouth to answer, but someone from behind called his name, an old friend. A voice full of excitement. Daniel hesitated, torn for a moment, then turned back to Emily with regret in his eyes. "Can we talk later?" he asked. "There's a lot I need to say." Emily nodded before she could stop herself. "Sure." He relaxed just a little, giving her one last look, one filled with a strange mixture of hope and fear. Then he walked away with his friend, leaving Emily standing in the middle of the market, holding a carton of strawberries she no longer remembered picking up. She tried to continue her errands, but her thoughts refused to settle. Everything around her felt louder, brighter, and somehow distant. She remembered the day he left 3 years ago, how he had rushed into a job opportunity in Seattle, how he had promised to keep in touch, and how the messages slowly faded until silence took over. She remembered the confusion, the hurt, and how she had eventually buried it under routine. But now he was back, bringing with him a wave of unfinished feelings. Emily walked through the rest of the market quickly, keeping her head down. Every step felt heavy with questions she didn't want to explore. Why had he come back now? Why did he speak like he had something important to confess? Why did his eyes look different, more serious, more aware, more honest? She reached her car and leaned against the door for a moment, trying to steady herself. She wasn't angry anymore. She wasn't broken. She had rebuilt her life piece by piece. But his sudden return had opened a door she thought she had closed forever. On the drive back to the bakery, she forced herself to focus on the tasks waiting for her orders to finish, customers to greet, schedules to manage. But even as she worked, she found herself glancing at the door more than once, half expecting Daniel to walk in. Her employees noticed her distraction, but she brushed it off with a tired smile. By evening, the market scene replayed in her mind again and again. His voice, his expression, the unfinished sentence. When she finally closed the bakery for the night, she realized something important. She wasn't just curious about what he wanted to say. She was afraid of it. Afraid that whatever confession he carried might change everything she had carefully rebuilt. And yet, a small part of her wanted to hear it. She walked home slowly, letting the cool air clear her thoughts. The quiet of Maple Springs usually comforted her, but tonight it felt too still, too expectant, as if the whole town knew something was about to unfold. Emily didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but one thing was certain. Daniel's return wasn't just a simple visit. It was the beginning of something she wasn't ready for, yet couldn't avoid. And deep down, she knew his unfinished words would not stay silent for long. Emily tried to focus on work the next few days, but her mind refused to cooperate. Daniel's unfinished words followed her everywhere. In the quiet moments before sunrise, in the noise of the bakery, even in the simple conversations with customers. She moved quickly, kept herself busy, and tried to push those thoughts away. But his voice kept replaying in her head. "There's something I wanted to tell you." It felt like a door had opened, and no matter how much she wanted to close it, something inside her wouldn't let her. Her employees noticed she was distracted. One of them, a cheerful college student named Bella, asked softly, "Emily, are you okay? You seem somewhere else." Emily forced a smile. "Just tired." It was easier than admitting the truth. Easier than explaining that someone from her past had returned and turned her calm world upside down. By the third afternoon, the thoughts grew heavier instead of fading. Emily decided to step outside for a minute just to breathe fresh air and clear her head. But as soon as she unlocked the bakery door and stepped onto the sidewalk, she stopped. Daniel stood there, hands in his pockets, looking unsure but determined. "Emily," he said, "can we talk now?" She wanted to say no. She wanted to tell him she was too busy, too tired, too guarded to revisit old wounds. But she knew herself better than that. She had been waiting, whether she liked it or not, to hear what he had to say. So she nodded. They walked to a quiet spot by the river, choosing a wooden bench under a willow tree. The late afternoon sun reflected on the water, the light soft and calming. Emily sat with her hands in her lap, unsure how to begin. Daniel sat beside her, giving her space but not too much. It felt both familiar and strange. He took a breath, then spoke. "Emily, I left without explaining anything. I know that. And I know it hurt you. I thought leaving would make everything simpler, but it didn't." She stared at the river, trying to stay composed. "You could have told me, Daniel. You could have said something." "I know," he said quietly. "I was young, and I was scared of how much I cared about you. I didn't understand what to do with those feelings. I ran from them. And from you." Emily felt something shift inside her, a mix of frustration, confusion, and a strange sense of relief. She wasn't wrong back then. The connection she had felt hadn't been one-sided. She had sensed something deep, something unspoken. Hearing him admit it now made her feel both validated and unsettled. Daniel continued, his voice steady. "I thought moving to Seattle would help me grow up. And maybe it did. But I realized something important while I was gone. Avoiding the truth doesn't make it disappear." Emily turned to look at him. His expression was sincere, open in a way she had never seen before. He didn't look like someone hiding behind excuses anymore. He looked like someone ready to be honest. He sighed. I never forgot you. Not for a single day. The words hit her harder than she expected. She felt the weight of years pressing against her heart. All the unanswered questions finally forming shape. She wanted to speak, but her voice felt stuck. So she just listened. Daniel lowered his gaze. There's another reason I came back. Not just to see Maple Springs. Not just to visit family. His voice grew quieter. I came back for you. Emily's breath caught. Her heart jumped, but confusion quickly followed. Why now? She asked. After all this time? Because I finally realized what I should have realized years ago, he said. And because I don't want to keep living with regret. Before she could respond, Daniel shifted slightly, running a hand through his hair. A nervous habit she remembered well. But there's more I need to say, and I don't want to say it wrong. Emily frowned gently. What do you mean? He stood up suddenly, pacing a few steps away as if trying to gather himself. Not here, he muttered. Not yet. I need to say it right. She watched him, trying to understand. She didn't want more unfinished sentences. She didn't want him to walk away again, even for a moment. But she also knew this wasn't simple for him. These weren't light words, and he wasn't taking them lightly. He came back and sat down beside her again. Not too close, but close enough that she could feel his uncertainty. Emily, he said softly, just give me one more day. One day, and I'll tell you everything. She wanted clarity, not delays. She wanted answers, not promises. But something in his eyes, hopeful, nervous, honest, softened her. One more day, she repeated quietly. Daniel let out a breath of relief. And something in his expression eased. Thank you, he whispered. They walked back toward town in silence. But it wasn't cold silence. It was a silence full of unspoken things. A silence heavy with emotion and possibility. When they reached the bakery, he gave her a gentle nod and walked away, leaving her standing by the door with a heart full of questions. Emily watched him go, unsure of whether she should feel hopeful or afraid. She didn't know what his final confession would be, but she felt its weight already. And deep inside, she knew tomorrow wouldn't be just another day. It would be the day everything changed. Emily spent the whole next day trying to steady her thoughts, but Daniel's promise stayed with her like a quiet echo. She worked faster than usual, trying to keep herself busy, but her heart kept drifting back to that moment by the river. His honesty, his fear, his eyes that seemed to carry something deeper than she had ever known from him before. She told herself not to overthink, but she still found herself checking the bakery door more times than she wanted to admit. By evening, the sky had turned a soft gold, then slowly darkened into a gentle shade of purple. A light breeze swept over Maple Springs, carrying the scent of pine trees and the faint sweetness of pastries cooling in her shop. She decided to walk through town for a bit, hoping the fresh air would clear her head. She didn't expect anything to happen. She didn't expect him to show up. But the quiet streets and glowing lights only made her more aware of how much she wanted answers. The first raindrop fell just as she reached the town square. It hit her hand lightly, then another landed on her cheek. Soon the drizzle turned steady, but soft enough that she didn't feel the need to rush. She pulled her jacket tighter and kept walking, letting the rain calm her restless heart. Then she heard her name. Emily! She turned, and there he was, Daniel, jogging toward her in the rain, his hair damp, his expression tense, as if he had been searching for her for hours. Wait, he said breathlessly. I've been looking everywhere. Emily blinked, surprised. For me? Yes, he said, clearly anxious. I didn't want today to pass without talking to you. Not after everything I said yesterday. Before she could answer, A rumble of thunder echoed softly in the distance. Daniel glanced around and pointed toward the gazebo near the square. "Let's go there." They hurried through the rain and stepped under the wooden shelter. Water dripped down from the roof edges, forming a soft curtain around them. The rest of the town felt distant, as if the world had shrunk to just the two of them, and the sound of falling rain. Daniel stood in front of her, breathing hard, trying to gather himself. Emily waited quietly, her heart pounding but her expression steady. He finally spoke. "Emily, I didn't leave because I didn't care about you. I left because I cared too much, and I didn't know how to handle it. I thought running away would make everything easier." He paused, swallowing hard. "But it only made me realize how much I lost by leaving." Emily felt something deep inside her soften. Hearing those words out loud after so many quiet years felt like a wound slowly healing. Daniel continued, his voice low but full of honesty. "I came back because I couldn't carry it anymore. I couldn't keep pretending that what I felt for you was something I could run from." She looked up at him, unsure if she was ready for what was coming, but completely unable to look away. "Emily," he said, stepping closer, "I'm still in love with you." The words settled between them, heavy, warm, and undeniable. For a moment she couldn't breathe. She had imagined this confession in 100 different ways, but hearing it now after so much silence felt unreal. Her heart raced, not with fear, but with a rush of emotions she hadn't allowed herself to feel for years. She didn't know what to say. She didn't know how to react. She only knew that something inside her had been waiting for this. Daniel saw her shock and softened his tone. "I'm not asking you to say anything right now. I needed you to know. Even if it changes nothing, I needed to be honest." Emily tried to speak, but before she could get a word out, a sudden ringing cut through the quiet Daniel's phone. He looked at the screen, and his expression changed instantly. A mix of worry and frustration filled his face. He hesitated, then whispered, "I'm sorry. I have to take this." Emily nodded, though disappointment tugged at her chest. He stepped away just a few feet, turning his back slightly as he answered the call. She couldn't hear the words, but she could read the tension in his shoulders and the way he ran a hand over his face. She stared at the rain falling beyond the gazebo, her emotions swirling. His confession had opened something inside her, something she wasn't ready to voice yet, but also couldn't ignore. When Daniel finally returned, his expression was conflicted. "That call," he said slowly, "was from a company in Seattle. They want me for a big project. They offered me a position." A cold ache settled in her chest. "So you're leaving again?" "I don't know," he admitted. "I didn't expect this today. I didn't expect any of it." Emily nodded, trying to keep her voice steady even though her heart trembled. "Daniel, you just told me you're in love with me." He stepped closer, his voice warm but uncertain. "I know. That's why this is so hard. I don't want to lose this chance with you. Not again. But I can't ignore the call either. I'm trying to figure out what the right choice is." Emily felt something between fear and hope rise in her. She didn't want him to leave. She didn't want him to run again. But she also didn't want to stand in the way of his future. The rain kept falling around them, soft and steady, as if the sky understood the weight of everything unspoken. Emily didn't know what tomorrow would bring. She only knew one thing. Nothing between them could ever be simple again. Not after that confession. Not after the years they had lost. Not after the truth he had finally shared. And standing there under the dim light of the gazebo, she realized that this night rain-soaked, emotional, interrupted, had changed everything. Emily stayed under the gazebo, watching Daniel as he struggled to find the right words. The rain had softened to a steady drizzle, the kind that made the whole town feel quieter. But inside her, everything felt loud. Her heartbeat. Her hope. Daniel looked torn, like a man pulled in two directions. And for the first time in years, Emily realized she no longer wanted him to carry things alone. He stepped closer, water still dripping from his hair. "Emily, I don't know what to do," he admitted. "Seattle was my chance to grow once. And now it feels like another big opportunity. But I came back because of you. I came back because something in me couldn't let you go." Emily took a slow breath, trying to steady her voice. "I understand that. I really do. But I need to know what you want, not what you think you should choose, and not what you think will hurt less." "What do you want, Daniel?" He looked at her with a softness she hadn't seen before. "I want you. That's the truth. I've wanted you for a long time. But I also want to do the right thing for my career. I've spent so many years trying to prove something to myself, and I don't want to lose that progress." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The rain filled the silence, tapping gently on the wooden roof above them. Emily felt the weight of his words settling inside her. She had imagined this moment before him choosing her, promising a future, but real life wasn't that simple. They were older now, careful with their hearts, aware of the things they could lose. She finally said, "Daniel, I don't want you to stay here just because you feel guilty for leaving before. And I don't want you to leave again because you're afraid of choosing something real. This isn't just about one decision. It's about what you're willing to build." He nodded slowly. "You're right." Emily stepped toward the edge of the gazebo, watching the wet pavement shimmer under the streetlights. Her breath fogged slightly in the cool air. "When you left years ago," she said, "I thought I was okay. I told myself you just picked your future. But part of me stayed stuck in that moment. I didn't move on the way I pretended to. And when you showed up again, it brought everything back." Daniel's voice softened. "Emily, I never meant to hurt you." "I know," she said quietly. "But that doesn't erase what happened." He lowered his head, taking in the truth. Emily turned back to him. "The thing is, I still care about you, more than I want to admit. And hearing that you still love me," her voice trembled, "it meant something. It really did. But I'm scared. Scared that if I let you back into my life completely, you'll leave again. And I won't be able to handle that." Daniel moved closer, his steps slow, not wanting to overwhelm her. "I won't run again," he said. "Not unless you tell me there's no chance for us. And even then, I'd still want to stay here a little longer, because the thought of walking away from you without trying, it feels wrong now." Emily held his gaze. The honesty in his eyes made her heart ache in a way that felt both painful and healing. He gently reached for her hand, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His touch was warm, steady, grounding. "Emily," he said, "I don't know what will happen with Seattle. I don't know what decision I'll make tomorrow. But I do know I want you to be part of my life, no matter what." She looked at their joined hands, then slowly lifted her eyes to his. "Then let's start with this," she whispered. "No promises we can't keep. No rushing. No disappearing. Just honesty. And small steps." Daniel nodded, relief washing over him like a quiet wave. "I can do that. I want to do that." The rain finally slowed to a light mist, and the air grew calmer around them. Emily felt something loosen inside her, a tension she had carried for years, suddenly lighter. She took a breath that felt deeper than any she had taken in a long time. Daniel squeezed her hand gently. "So, what now?" he asked, his voice warm but cautious. Emily gave a small, hopeful smile. "Now we walk together, and we see where it leads." They stepped out of the gazebo, the wet pavement glistening under their feet.